What up? What up? What up? It is a mid afternoon episode of the Shark Cove in the midst of an LEC slate where I happen to what appears to be stacked the two slowest games, perhaps one of the two being a loser as well, and my final leg of my largest and kind of my day breaker or maker seems like it is not going to come through for me. It looks like Casey did get a kill, but I need assists. And the gentleman who got the kill was somebody I needed the assist from. Nevertheless, we have brighter days ahead. I have Mr. James McCool from Pater DFS here on the show with me. And James, the reason you're here, and this is no secret to anybody, is I've requested you build something using some of the same methodology tools that you do for NFL, MLB, NHL, and many other things over to the league aspect, specifically targeted at player props. DFS is nearly dead in terms of the support for League of Legends, and I would assume CS as well. So this is a tool that I think is going to be fantastic. It's going to be helpful for those of us that want to get into it, and also people that want to transition over. And perhaps this turns into something for Counter-Strike as well. But James, welcome to the show.
Hello. I'm James. I own PaterDFS.com. You guys don't know who I am. I'm kind of surprised by that. I think that most people know who I am, at least in terms of esports, DFS, esports betting, stuff like that. I have known Emmerich for a while. I've been on Shark Cove a couple times. I love him. I love Gelati. I love everybody. We wanted to come together and kind of build out a tool that would utilize a lot of the same methodology that I have for my DFS models in the betting space. I'm not quite as pessimistic as Mr. Emmerich over here of the DFS side of things for League of Legends and CSGO. I think that where it's at now, obviously, we would like to see bigger prize pools. We would like to see more support. We'd like to see more engagement. But I think that where it's currently at, there's still going to be, for the people who are willing to grind it, there's still going to be some good edge there. And there's still going to be some opportunities to make some money. So I think that the exercise of building out this tool has only made it so that I can build stronger things for DFS, because this has got I don't even have the DFS models up on the site right now. Like, they're not even updated for the current year, because I wanted to really put a lot of effort into this and make this right so that I could then take the things that I built for this over into DFS, which has been needing to be rehashed. All of that is a long way of saying this tool that we built out is pretty cool. It is still kind of in a beta phase right now. It's free over on the site. If you want to go check it out, then you can do that. You just go to models, League of Legends, and then just go down to the matchup builder right here. And that's going to bring you over to this. So pretty cool tool. And I'm excited to kind of go over a couple things with it today.
Yeah, James, I don't think it's dead. It's always gonna be there in terms of like the DFS, but we're talking 2K to first prize pools. Very rarely will we see a 5K. When we do, we're kind of excited, and that's a far cry from where it was, especially 4 years ago, but even 2-3 years ago, where we would randomly see a $10,000 to first prize pool. I think those days, barring some type of national tragedy, and hey, like the last time we had one of those, Trump was president again. Perhaps as he saved TikTok, he may save DFS for League of Legends as well.
Now let's pause there really quick. He didn't save TikTok. It's still banned. For those who are wondering, it's for sure still banned.
Well, look, he saved it for a day, at least 2 days. Perhaps a little longer.
No. It's still banned. Like now, as we talk.
I understand, but the optimism that they have with Mr. Trump and what he has talked about with them has given them the confidence to allow it to still work. Nothing's being prosecuted. So
that's not true, Emmerich. That's not true. What? Okay,
it's not being enforced. It's still running. It's running.
No. It is. It's still being enforced. It's still being enforced. Go to the App Store right now on your phone.
Well, I mean, I can run it on my phone. I can run
The deal was that it would be taken off of the App Store and the Google Store, and that it would stop receiving updates. That is still in place.
Right, but as of 2 days ago, they went completely dark. You couldn't operate. You couldn't get anything.
That I know.
Now
that was
you can. Now you
that
can.
was
I've watched videos, and that's all I'm saying.
I know. That was TikTok doing that themselves. That was not part of the ban. The ban was never that they would shut down servers. So I just want to clarify, since we've been talking about this, you and I have been talking about this on and off.
I'm just saying this happened because of Trump. Look, I'm not a Trump guy. I don't think a lot of what he's done is positive. So I'm just trying to find positivity in my life, and if I can attribute something positive to somebody, this is, since the first season of Apprentice, it ranks up there for me in terms of top things he's done. So, and look, it can be an indirect. I don't think it was an executive order, obviously, but nevertheless, we are way off topic. And if we're going to talk about TikTok, we need to get shirtless Gugs on here, and we're not getting into the shirtless episode. Not
well,
at least
no,
right now.
I
Maybe
wouldn't.
Later.
I wouldn't talk about that with shirtless Gugs. I talk about it with you because I think that you're well adjusted. I'm not going to talk about that with him because it'll just fucking go in circles. Plus,
well, look,
I like going off script. Off script is fun.
Well, yes, but this is fun. This is, I've been waiting for this to come together, and in some ways it's been even more difficult over the last week and a half because we've had League of Legends. League of Legends is here, but part of what this needs, and any model needs, is some data to start doing some calculations and figure out a couple things and make those predictions. And as it stands, we don't technically have as much data as I think you and I would like, but we have a little bit of data, and that's better than no data. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. So what I'll say with the data stuff is, like, with this tool right now, if you go and you just say, I want to see T1 versus Brian, and you just want to, we'll talk about how all these things work. But if you just want to see straight up T1 versus Brian, then you can go over and you can run it based on the team and based on the opponent in just one game. And you can run it, or you can run it on 2 games, 3 games, whatever, right? But what you're going to see is data from over the last year. And what that will give you is the first 5 players, the first, player at each position, and their averages over the last year. What you will also see, unfortunately, is that if any of these players is not on that team right now, then you're going to see them as that team, right? So in this instance, Zeus in this screenshot, he shouldn't be here, right? So we have to do some things to kind of mitigate that a little bit. And one of the things that you can do instead of going with team, you can go with player, and you can select players, and we'll show that off here in a second when we talk about one of the examples for tonight. But I think that one of the things about this is, 1, you have to be careful about using just straight team settings, but 2, and this kind of speaks to the value of the tool and the value of understanding the game state. Most people know that I talk to know that I started playing League of Legends back in 2020 when I started running these models so that I could understand the models better. Because I didn't understand the game. Like, I didn't play it. So I didn't understand kind of what was happening. So I wanted to learn. And one of the things that I think makes the models over at Paydirt strong, and one of the reasons why you, Emmerich, are better at League of Legends DFS and betting than other people, is because you can look at the game state and you can understand the different patch, and you can understand kind of different things that are happening in the game, right? So you and I have gone back and forth a little bit on the changes over the off season, of which there were some massive changes. And that's specifically the reason why I have not wanted to make adjustments to the models yet and put them up on the site, because I wanted to see how those things played out. So not only do we have the issue of stale data for team members, but we also have the issue of stale data for macro compositions and the different kind of draft types and the differences in the way that we approach how many kills teams will score. So one of the reasons why this is in beta, one of the reasons why I'm fine with it being in beta right now, is because I think we have 2-3 weeks where we just kind of have to wait and see before we can even really apply a tool like this, because it does need historical data. And it doesn't only need historical data for the players, it needs historical data for opponents. So after like 2-3 weeks, then we have a way better idea of how the leagues are acting based on the changes, how each player is reacting to the changes that have been made, how positions each lane is being affected. Like there's probably going to be more kills bot lane, so Otacon is going to spawn bot lane more often than top lane, blah, 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 stuff like that. So I think that one of the things worth noting when we talk about a tool like this that is heavily based on historical baselines is that data is key, and using longer form data is always going to be better. So right now, I think is a time to get used to using the tool and letting me know how to build a better tool. And that's mostly what this is about. Speaking of Gugs over here, what's this, an ad for Paydirt? 1, fuck you. 2, no, it's not an ad for Paydirt. It's talking about League and talking about this tool that I built for everyone, not just for Paydirt, sir. It's free right now if you actually use the site. It's just, I think this is a good conversation to be had about not only this application towards DFS and applications for DFS, but also applications towards how to bet on a game that basically changes every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we see this every year too. I mean, and so there's some level of expectation that things are going to change. I've come to realize that when it comes to the patches, when it comes to the dynamics of the gameplay, Pro Play seems to, I don't want to say have it figured out, but there seems to be a baseline of numbers that it'll operate within. A winning team is typically, going to have between 15 and 22 kills. It's just, I mean, in most cases, is that closer to the 15? Is it closer to the 22, given the information and the patch and how things are being played out? And obviously, different leagues are going to be differently too. So, yeah, it makes it hard to figure out some of these things, not only in this model, but even if you're trying to figure it out. I mean, you can go look at historical, how people have played, what their records are. But, we're talking in the LEC right now, we're watching best of ones. How things happen in a best of one versus a best of 3 or a best of 5 for player props are very different. The more games, the more you have the opportunity to normalize it. But you kind of have a black and white situation when it comes to, the best of ones. Either a team's going to win or they're going to lose. And you're going to have results that are directly correlated to that. But when you're talking about a best of 2 or a best of 3, if there was a best of 2, but a best of 3 or a best of 5, that there's an extra layer that you have to add on there. Is this team going to 2-1? Are they going to 3-0? How are the props assuming it? And a lot of times in these mismatched LPL matchups, we see these sites thinking that it's going to be a 3-0. And so if you want to take the over on those props, I mean, you're going to be screwed if they lose a game. And sometimes, that's what you have to look at. That's the fun in all of this. Yeah. So I'm excited because I think this gives us a huge advantage over, what I did towards the end of last season. I thought about building this out last year or doing something on my own. But I was like, man, I'm not going to do too much. The season's almost over. And then I just went hard into it, and I'm just looking at match histories. And obviously that has its pros and cons. You can do very well doing that. But, man, I'm excited to see you start plugging some in here and taking a look at what we can do. Now, look, hey, we were having a conversation earlier, so people know you can do it by team, but you can also do it by player. And we're not looking at last year data. You can change the custom range. So you can, even 2-3 months down the road, while this app is still free, perhaps while you're paying for a subscription, who knows, at that point, you can actually change it. If you think that there's a huge shift in the meta and how games are going to be played, you can make that change. You can put the data into a different time frame. I think what it was 2 years ago, maybe 3, they had the durability patch, and that made it so games went way under. People's kill totals, assist totals, all of those things cratered because of the way they did it. This is going to give us the opportunity to adjust to that data on the fly. But let's take a look at what you're doing here. You've got zero lag and we love gaming. Interesting choice here, but you have it by the year composition. Before we get into the intricacies of it, James, tell me what it is we're looking at here, how I, as a casual bettor, would utilize some of this information, assuming it was all current. What am I looking at? I go to Nathan's site, Underdog. I see that there's a kill total for this dude, Heroic, and it's in a best of, what does it look like, 3 series. Nathan's telling me that this guy's going to get 15 kills, and then I have the opportunity to bet higher or lower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I wanted to run this because Nathan is in the chat right now, and he said, let's see Zero Lag versus We Love Gaming from the AHL.
Can we change it to one game, though? Nathan,
one?
Yeah, one game.
Sure, yeah. Let's run that. I don't think I have data for Smart right now. But, yeah, so what you can do is you go here, and you'll set your teams. And, yeah, you can set a different range for the data, right? Like we can go the last full year, or you can set a custom range date, which is going to be any 2 dates, right? Like not only you can not only do like the last week or the current year, right? But you could also say, I think that this patch looked very similar to a patch from 7 months ago, right? And you can isolate just what that patch is and how these players did during that patch. But then after you run the data, after you've set up your team, your range, and then how many games you wanted to do, then you would run it, and then you can see a couple different things. So do full match data, where you're going to be able to see what the outcome of that one game was. You can see the individual game data. So if you ran multiple games, then you can actually see what the outcome was for each game for each individual player, right? Which is pretty cool. And then you're going to see down here, you're going to see different. You're going to see what the full range for these players were. So the median expectation for Deletus was 3.7 kills in this one game, but we should expect him to be between 2.3 and 5.1. It's pretty sick. So you can see what the full range of outcomes would be for these players, and you can see that for deaths, you can see it for assists, and you can see it for CS. And then we can also go down here and do a prop check. So say that Nathan had a prop of 5.5 for Heroic, right? We can actually go down here and switch this, and we can see that Heroic surpasses that 82% of the time. If you wanted to see 6.5, 68% of the time. If you wanted to check on deaths, right? Let's say that we're going to look at 4.5 and we'll look at deaths. You can see that Deletus has more than 4.5 deaths 84% of the time in this one game. So you can extrapolate that over into the betting markets. And one thing that I think would actually be pretty cool to do would be able to say, also put another option here for book and say if it's prize picks, then put it at like -157 or whatever the fuck it is for prize picks, even though they have variables now, but whatever. Mm-hmm. Or you can choose prize picks, or you can choose sportsbook. And if you choose, any of those, then you'll be able to see in relation to what their line is offered, then you would be able to see that here. So instead of 84%, like if you chose sportsbook, then it would be the American line translation of whatever 84% would be, which would be -270 something, I think. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I think that would be kind of cool. It's not something I built in, but it's something that would be kind of cool. Anyway, you can do this, and you can see a lot of different things about how you should be betting, where the edge is lying, where you should be putting your money, overs, unders, stuff like that. I think this would be a really, really cool tool. It's not quite as in-depth as the stat-specific sims that I have on the site for NBA, NHL, NFL. I'm still considering making it that in-depth, but the issue with that is that I would need to be able to have an API feed into things like Underdog, which, by the way, hi, Nathan, get me a fucking API feed into the Underdog props and let me actually pull those in. Or you could go and do a sportsbook, but I would need API feeds for that. And we just don't have that many API feeds into those kind of leagues. So I think that this is a big step up from most of the things that you'll find in the industry around betting at any of these places. So yeah, pretty cool.
So, one of the other things that I think is super cool about this is, oftentimes some of us, all of us, at some point or another think we're smarter than the next guy, right? I don't think that this space lends itself to a ton of humble people. We might have humble moments, but we all think that our projections, our data, were probably a little bit better than the next guy. And that's okay. We wouldn't be doing it if we weren't. But This tool allows you to, if you think that you're better than James's numbers, or you want to see a different range because you realize your numbers are not as good, but you're just curious, right? You're just curious. James, there is a way that you can change the predicted number, correct?
There is indeed. So what you can do is, you'll reset the data up here, right? And then down here, if instead of average, you can go predict. Then you can say, here's what I think this game is going to turn out to be. So we can say, all right, I think this game is actually going to be a closer game with a lot of kills on both sides. Let's say 18-10, something like that. And then you can come up here and let's choose a team that I actually have full data for. Let's go EDG. Let's just go EDG versus Thundertalk. Let's do that. And we can run that for one specific game.
If you pull last year data, though, you're going to pull inaccurate rosters. I think we're going to have to perhaps go custom range.
Yeah. It's okay, Nathan. It's fun to. I had not run anything from the HLL, so no problem at all. Yeah. So we can show off the actual teams, but
this was last year's roster.
Yeah. So who do we have now? We can go player here.
Oh wow! So you can just change the player. Interesting. Okay. So yeah, EDG off the top of my head. Jesus.
I got it up. It's ZDZ.
Yeah.
How Angel, Zoom, and Wink. So you can type in all the players there, clear it, and then rerun. Then you can utilize the data based on those individual players instead of just the team itself. And the cool thing about this is a higher level person would say, oh, well, we don't know how these players are going to interact with each other. And I think that is relatively fair. However, we have a failsafe for that on here. So even though we don't know how these guys will play together for the most part, we can normalize them against the averages for the kills for these players. So especially if you're going to be trying to predict things, this is going to normalize the rates for these players against the predicted outcome for the game itself, which is very cool. So now here's a real world example, right? Here's EDG versus Thundertalk, which we have tonight. And we can see the outcome.
Can we change it to a best of 5? Well, best of 3. We need to simulate 3 games.
You want to do 3 games? Okay. So game 1, what do you want? Game 1, you want win, loss, win here?
Let's assume EDG loses 2 games and they win 1 game.
Okay.
So when let's do, it doesn't matter which. Game 1, let's go with they win this game, they win it. Hang on, let me look at what I got here. EDG in a win is going to get, let's give them 19 kills.
Yep.
Let's say they seed 7.
Okay.
So 19-7, but then they lose the next 2 games. They're going to lose those games. Let's say 21. Well, they're not going to get 21. They're going to get 11, and they're going to give up 21. And then the second game is going to be a 17-8. Yeah, I could have done 19-19, but hey.
You want 17-8?
Yeah, let's do 17-8. Let's do that.
Okay. Reset. Go ahead and run it. And then that'll run. So now what we're going to be able to see is a game 1 win and then 2 losses. So I'm playing best of 5 here, right? But only counting the first 3 games. So this takes a second. And the reason why it takes a second is because it's actually creating this data on click. I don't have this held anywhere in a database. So here you go. And what we can see is 12 kills for Asum. We have 8, 8, 9. And here we can see what we ended up with in terms of kills. We can check for deaths, assists, all that kind of different stuff, right?
Well, let's go pull it up. Let's take a look at what we got here. So let's pull up what we got. We're going to use the Underdog stats, and let's take a look. We've got ZDZ. ZDZ has a 1.06 multiplier on 6.5 kills.
Looks like we expect him to go over that.
Let's prop it at 6.5. Let's see how often that happens, though.
For ZDZ, 79% of the time.
Wow. Wow. Oh, well, I think then the problem that you run into as a bettor, is you better hope that they win one of those games, right?
Yeah.
That's the catch here. Or like, look, if they win 2, it probably is a slam dunk, but you didn't need me to tell you that. Let's take a look at some of the other guys on there. We've got Angel at 8.5. Angel at 8.5.
So he goes over 67% of the time, under 33% of the time. So that's much closer.
Okay. And then let's take a look at Zhao Hao, or however you say his name. He is at an 8.5.
43% of the time over, 57% of the time under.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let's take a look at deaths. ZDZ deaths. We've got it at 8.5. The people think he's going over that. The people think that this is a situation where he is going to die a ton, and it looks like you agree with him.
Yep, we agree with that. We agree. And you can also go over and look at what the death projections are going to be, right? Which is another really cool thing about this.
Oh, man, that is some fantastic stuff.
So then the other thing that you can do, as we are looking at this, say that you wanted to say, all right, well, that's great. I can look at the overall stuff here, but what happened in each individual game? You can actually go over and see that. You can see all the stats from each individual game for each individual player. So, like, if we wanted to say, let's just look at Angel's outcomes. In the game where he won, he ended up with 6 kills. But in the 2 games that he lost, he ended up with 2 and 1.5 kills. So, what is that? 60% of his total kill count came from that one win. So now this is where you would think about things like, as you mentioned, you better hope that they win that one game. This is where you think through, what is their sweep odds, right? Like, what are the odds that they're going to get swept here? What are the odds that they win that one game? Because that's really what you're hinging on here, right? Because if they get that one win, they're probably going over their totals.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look here and see what the bookmakers are telling us. It looks like TT is a minus 190 favorite. I mean, it does appear as though they assume that EDG is going to, win at least one game. Their plus 1.5 is minus 155, but the under 4.5 games total is at a minus 220. So the books seem to think that EDG wins 1, TT wins 3. That 4th game obviously doesn't matter a lot to us in terms of underdog, because the way that they post it, you don't really get those game 4s and game 5s, and that's okay, Nathan. I'm not digging at you for that. I get it. You have to sleep, and you've kind of revolutionized this industry in some ways, because nobody was giving us deaths and assists until you did it. My heart goes out to you. Nobody was doing these ERLs until you did it. Many thanks to you. I tried to get Nathan on the show. I said I miss seeing his dogs, but he had to get some fish and chips or something along those lines, he said. For those of you who don't know, he lives across the pond. That's why I made that joke. He's not really getting fish and chips. He's doing work. But PrizePicks does indeed have game 4s and game 5s, and so you can kind of utilize this to see what you would think and bet that in advance, or kind of refine some of the data that you have as you watch the games. Going off of this, obviously this isn't going to update in real time, so this is kind of like a beta version, right? It's a working trial. We expect there to be bugs. We expect things to not necessarily always work. What do we do if there's something in here that we think is wrong? Should we message me? I'm going to message you.
Yeah.
How can we report those bugs?
Well, you can always bother Emmerich. I mean, I always suggest bothering Emmerich, just not even for this, just bother Emmerich just because he needs things to do in life. But yeah, you can find me. I mean, one of the big things that I like about this industry, and one of the things that I really enjoy is when somebody says, hey, it would be cool if your tool could do this. Or like, I think that this tool would be better if you were able to do X, Y, or Z. And I'm always like, okay, cool. Yeah, that seems like a good thing to add. And so long as it doesn't like remove UI or like remove core functionality from the tool, I'm always happy to try to do those things and like add those kind of things. Especially with a tool like this, where this is kind of I don't know, this kind of thing doesn't really exist anywhere in the industry, so we're kind of trying to trailblaze a little bit. I absolutely, one, think that things will fucking break because I'm not that good at coding, and two, absolutely think there's going to be ways to improve it because I'm not God, and neither is Emmerich. So I think that there's going to be both of those things. If either one of those things stick out to you, if you want this tool to be able to do X, Y, or Z, or if you think that it would be cool to add this, or if you think the UI would be better if it had something, right? Like this right here, you can't read any of these fucking player names. These are just letters. I don't know who I selected. I completely forgot who's actually on this team, right?
But you can hover over it. You just showed us. You can hover over it with your cursor, and it'll show you. So
yeah, but it would maybe be nicer if you could read those names. You know, maybe that's the UI thing that I need to fix. Maybe instead of select players being a column, it should be a row here where you could actually see the players. That'd be nice. Things like that. Please let me know. You can reach out to me in the Pater Discord or on Twitter, or you could email me, or you could come to my house and have some brownies with me if you'd like. Any of those ways works for me. I always want people to be able to use this stuff and let me know. And then as soon as we probably hit like a month, it's going to go behind the paywall because this is a really, really cool tool. And I think that it's important for me to, make money off of it. So it will be behind the paywall at some point, but I'm happy to have people try it out and test it out and get used to it before it goes behind the paywall for sure. Nathan, you can get my address from me if you'd like through a DM or an email because you're a friend. And also because I don't think you'll utilize it because it would take a lot of time and money for you to actually come over to Tennessee to find me.
I would like nothing more than to see a video of Gugs showing up at your door, ready to eat some brownies and watch some videos with you.
One thing really quick before we move forward from this, you can also see the opponent data, which I think is an interesting thing. You can see what the boosts are being applied based on the opponent that you're facing. So Thunder Talk is the opponent that we're looking at here. They are mostly neutral in a lot of ways for assists, but for deaths, like bot laners are averaging more deaths against Thunder Talk. And that's kind of interesting to see. Mid laners are averaging more kills against Thunder Talk. Like that's cool to see. This kind of stuff, if you really want to break it down to like a very micro detail, this kind of stuff I think for super users is going to be really interesting. Like top laners die less against Thunder Talk. They're not a strong side. Their top lane is not their strong side. It's their bot lane. So, maybe you utilize that and say, okay, well, just based on that, if I have this coin flip line, I'm going to take the under on deaths for the top laner facing Thunder Talk because I know that they average less deaths in games. Like that's just a lean. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time. To your point that this has to go behind a paywall at some point, completely understood. And, there are going to be some other added benefits. I mean, for those of you that have watched the Shark Cove for as long as it's been in existence, it's always been free. I used to do projections and a lot of other things that never charged for. I think Trevor one time took a lineup that I didn't make, won $5,000, sent me $100. Good guy. I haven't seen him around in a while. But we are going to make a Shark Cove kind of Discord. That Discord is going to have some really unique things that you'll be able to get. But those are going to be behind the paywall. But it is going to be in unison with the payment of this. So James will let me know. I'll give you access. You pay for this. You'll get access to that. You'll have access to a lot of other things that'll go along with that at that point. So, I want to at least make sure that I can consistently do this as I did a couple of years ago because kind of fell off the map, needed a break, found my way over into EverQuest. But, Hey, baby, we are back and we are loving it. We're not going anywhere. So, James, we are coming up at 35 minutes. Do I have you for another 15 or 20 minutes, maybe 25 tops?
Yeah, of course. I'm down to hang.
All right, so cool. Well, let's do this. The LEC was a sad end to the slate. Nathan took some of my money. It's time to take some of it back. Let's go ahead and pull up. I'm going to give you two teams. Let's look at a custom range because they both have 3 games played. And let's see what we can pull. Perhaps I'll pull up the rosters as well because I don't know if either of these teams have a mix of wins and losses. So, is it better actually if we pull? So if you pull a custom range and take it back to the beginning of last year, for example, that's going to pull their data from their previous team and the current games that they've played this split, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So perfect. Let's go over and we're going to talk about the SVP. They had a super week last week. That is the Superliga. For those of you that don't know, SVPLL. Let me go pull up their rosters real quick and take a look at this because I know Nathan's got it. I just don't know the players off the top of my head. Okay, so first game that we have, this is going to be a game that is on, I believe, Tuesday. That's 2024. You need to get to 25. This is going to be a slower league, too, for those of you that don't know. This historically, for me, is the lowest total league. So we've got VVV, Vini, Vidi, Vici. So these are the 3 guys that I'd like you to pull up, if you don't mind. Try CPM. P as in Peter.
P as in Peter.
Yep, there we go. CPM. I also need Time. Time. There he is. Mini Duke. Fucking hate him. Rayota. Rayito. And then the support, Thomas.
What is it?
Thomas. THOMAS.
Ah. Okay. Who do they face?
All right. They will be playing Ramboot.
Okay.
All right. So this is going to be a best of 1. Let me see what I think is going to happen in this game. One of the most fun things for me right now is that we're sharing your screen and not mine, and it's so much easier to mess around with some of the other things on my screens as a result. It's a rare thing for me, so I'm enjoying it thoroughly. All right, so when Vini Vici wins, let's see, their totals were. So we'll make this, me and you. So their totals were, they had a 23 kill win. And then they also had a 24 kill win. Although I think the first game that they played was against a pretty, or the third, I should say. Third game was against a pretty bad team. They're playing Ramboot, who I don't think has lost yet. Is that correct? Let me look. Bear with me. Internet is moving slow. No, Ramboot did, in fact, lose. Let's put this game, though. I mean, those are some high total. Ramboot's a good team. Let's put them in a win 15-5.
15-5. All right. All right. Let's see how it looks. I'm gonna let my cat in here really quick. As soon
That's
as
fine.
this shows up. There we go. All right. I'll be right back.
All right. So looking at these totals on the screen here, it's really thinking that Mini Duke is going to absolutely dominate the kill share here. See, these are sometimes when I look at this is This is where that's kind of tough for me. And I get it. We have kind of mixed data at this point, but 3.5, I mean, I don't know. Let's take a look. So I suppose that's a semi-accurate number. I mean, let's take a look and let's find Mini Duke as a whole. Let's see if we can pull up a player. SVP. Excuse me. There it is. Player. Let's find the player's name. Mini Duke. All right, so Mini Duke in wins so far this season only has a kill share of 20%, which, I mean, this is clocking him in around a 60%.
Yeah, this is up there. I would take a look at how time has produced for win for We Love Gaming, because it looks like to me him at 2.4 or no, him at 0.81 would tell me that he likely had a lower kill share for his team. And if it's lower for his team and then he comes into a spot like this, it might be skewing even farther down the line. Oh, wait. No. It's because of the opponent boosts. Okay. Look at that 1.95 boost. We're almost getting a double boost for Ramboot against mids for kills.
Okay.
That's why it's this number right here.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know. I don't think, I mean, out of 15 kills, 9 seems like that. Again, I think that this goes into that lack of current year data. Let's do this. Let's change it. Keep the players there. Go to a custom range, but change that to 25 from 24. Let's bring it to this year. Let's see how that changes it.
Okay.
This seems a little bit more kind of in line with what I would have thought. So I guess, I mean, this is some of the stuff that we're going to have to work through, you, me, and everybody that's watching that wants to utilize the tool. When you're working with a 1, 2, or 3 game sample size, there are going to be, I mean, outliers that kind of show their face, right? And then when you're pulling data from a year ago and you're pulling the players, it's a fantastic tool, but some of these guys played in different leagues, right? So they played not just is pulling data from a different patch, a different meta, almost essentially different games for every single one of them. So I think finding your way between the two, because I think at 2.87, or let's just call it 3, might be a little low. A 9, certainly a little bit high, but where we're at here is 3.5. I guess when you look at the two of those, at a 15, what are we seeing? Mini Duke is going to go under 76% of the time. Okay. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, look, he went, if we're going to use references in the 3 games that he's played so far, he went for 6 and 3 in a win and a win. And those are 22, I think, and 24 kill wins. And then he got 0 in a loss. Ramboot is one of the better teams in the league, in my opinion. So I think I firmly, I have a day to think about this, but I think he's going to go under. I think that's what the data says. Obviously, need to play with it, need to manipulate, massage it a little bit, and kind of get the numbers that tell you a story, not confirm the bias that you have. Perhaps.
I think the big thing that we're looking at here is just the data, right? It's if we use the full year, then what we get is a mix of market shares, basically, for these players, and we get a mix of opponent data, right? Because the Ramboot for a full year is a much different team than they are right now. So I do think,
different team, perhaps, actually.
Right.
So it's pulling data from Ramboot for players. I mean, you're pulling data trying to figure out how Rayoto will do when Rayoto played for Ramboot last year. So
right. Yep. That's exactly right. So it's important that over the next couple weeks, I mean, we see this for every single league. For the NFL, you basically can't use data from the year before. You can't. You have to make assumptions about what you think is going to change from the offseason. And then after 4 weeks, then you can start using data that you have from in season to make some more assumptions about the league and about the players and all that kind of stuff. I think we just see the same thing here, right? Like it's going to take a month for us to figure out how these teams mesh, how the league has changed, how the patches have changed, how the item changes have changed, how Otacon, like all of these things that have changed the league. And I think that it takes, at least the nice thing is that a lot of these leagues are now trying to move towards best of 5 rather than best of 1 or best of 3 rather than best of 1. And that helps a lot for my perspective and for Nathan's perspective and for anybody who models. The more games that we have, the better projections we can make. So I think that over the next couple of weeks, I think what we should be doing is we should be using this tool to kind of think through how we want the tool to act when we have the data that is going to be relevant. Or if you're really fucking good at this, you can create custom ranges from any data within the last year based on how you think the current patch is relating to the players that we are using. But I would still just wait for, a week or two before you even really start considering that these teams have meshed together and done anything together outside of just scrims, which, as we know, scrims are just kind of silly. Practice is never the real thing. So,
yeah, especially in league, there's a lot of things that are completely different. And the other thing is that when you're pulling data from different teams, I think the ERLs are a little bit unique in the sense that, one league, the SVP is very different than the Prime League. It's very different than the LFL. Whereas if you get a player like Jojo Pyun, pulling his data from the LCS, I think is not that much of a far cry from the gameplay in the LEC. I don't think that, the pace of play or the game or anything like that is that different. But I really do believe that some of these, even like tier 3, tier 4 ERLs are very different than, your big 3 or 4, the SVP, LFL, and, those are the big 2, the prime leagues up there. The NLC will be, but certainly wasn't last year. So I think some of those things need to be, considered. Now, let me ask you, I haven't looked at, props in, and we're getting off track here, and this is actually just more for me, but when you do your props for like MLB, you don't have it so it looks like this, right? It's a little bit different. I mean, couldn't this, I don't know. I love what you did here. I think it's super user friendly. I think it's fantastic. I think you could. Is this what it looks like for MLB? No, right?
No. So when you do MLB, or we'll go take a look at
for
NBA.
Like a prop for props. This is all I'm, because this is my thing now. Collecting cards.
Yeah. So this is the typical framework for a betting model overpayer. We have game betting model for anything that I project out top down. We have the prop markets, which is, anything where we are looking at, you can see any of the props for any player for everything across the league. Obviously, games have started, so we're not going to have props for everyone. But if it was before the games, you'd be able to see what Mike Conley's rebounds was for FanDuel, DraftKings, MDM, blah, blah, blah. Player projections for projecting out everything that's happening for every single player. This comes from my models. And then the big one, prop trend tables also included for NBA, NHL, NFL, and I think MLB. This tells you how often players have done things over the short, short, and medium samples, as well as what their projection is going to be. So this is really important for seeing kind of like trending players. But all that kind of stuff is baked into the stat-specific sims, which is the big thing. And what I think we could technically do with something like the League of Legends or a Counter-Strike tool. If you just want to run all of the props, you can. We'll just do that for DraftKings really quick. I actually don't think that there will be any props available for DraftKings right now. But what you can do is you can run a simulation of every single prop for every single player. And then it's going to bring them all together and tell you where the best edges are and what you should be betting. So this, I think, is what you were thinking of. And it'll tell you what the edges are on those things. It'll tell you what the trending under is, what the implied under is based on the book, what the prop is, what the projection is for that player, all that different kind of stuff. So this is way more in depth than what I have built for League of Legends, but it's way more in depth because I have more data sources that I can leverage, and two, I just have more markets to attack. Right? I mean, yeah. I have a whole bunch of books here. I have a whole bunch of different props. I can run aggregate, or I can run against pick 6. I can even add Prizepicks into this because I have a Prizepicks API if I wanted to. You can select different kinds of props, and the biggest thing is that I have feeds in all of those things. Like it's all about the feeds. If I can get feeds, then I can get market data, which allows me to create more complex tools. I just don't have feeds for things like League of Legends or CSGO because we're not really allowed to bet on them at retail books in America, which, is a bummer.
Some states you can, but not my state. Not my state. So.
Not my state either. And that's ultimately the problem. It's like if we had more access to betting on League of Legends and Counter-Strike and stuff like that here in the States, instead of just when there's like a major, right? Or when there's LEC or LCS championships, stuff like that. If we had access to LPL, LCK, HLL, LFL, all that kind of different stuff, we'd be able to build something like this because we would have feeds to the markets that are offering it, but we just don't. And one of the things about building this tool is this tool uses market sentiment to tell you to bet over under. And because we don't have market sentiment really for League of Legends, we can't, it's such an illiquid market. We can't trust any of the market sentiment that comes out from it. So it's hard to build something like this for League of Legends, even though I would love to. But if we had the availability to build something like this, I would also argue that we would likely have really good DFS prize pools again. So I would be less inclined to build prop stuff for it. I mean, I would still build it, but I would be less inclined to utilize it because I think the DFS streets would be back alive. So it's kind of an issue in a couple different ways and eats its own tail, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess I would also say that, the world that we lived in with DFS for League of Legends back in 2020, look, even if everything circled back to a, something that facilitated us having those type of prize pools again, I think it would be very different because if you remember at the beginning of that, and I didn't play DFS for League of Legends, that was my first time being exposed to it. I didn't even watch League of Legends, so it was a completely different world, and I think that was very similar to most people. And so you saw some really weird combinations. I think that from a DFS perspective, it's a lot more figured out, and I don't think it would be quite the same. I don't think we'll ever recapture that magic. I'd love to play for 50,000 up top again.
Right.
I'll deal with it, but it still wouldn't. It wouldn't be the same as it was. You just never know that you're living in the golden era until the era is over. So that's
I don't know, man. I think the DFS industry fucking loved those days. And I don't think it was just because there wasn't anything else to do. Big T fucking loved Jackie Love. He loved Jackie Love the Kid, man. And so many of these DFS guys, I just think that it scratches a certain itch you can't get with anything else. It's such a high octane, fast, adrenaline filled. When you're gambling on baseball, it's almost relaxed. You just basically sit back and wait for one thing to happen. But with League of Legends, you can, even if you don't know what's going on, you can kind of tell when something's going to happen. You can kind of tell when shit's about to hit the fan. And I think it builds similar to why I think Counter-Strike is the best DFS sport. I legitimately think Counter-Strike is the best DFS sport because it's you literally have a clock at the top of the screen that tells you when shit is going to hit the fan. You have a countdown to when you have to actually pay attention and when shit is going to happen. You don't have that with so many other sports, except for NFL. I think that's why people like NFL. They know that at the 2-minute warning, that's when they get to watch and wait for garbage time. That's when they kind of have this telecasted thing. So I really do think that if we got good prize pools, if we got like a real prize pool push, dudes over at RPS, they would buy in. I don't think the nerds over at ETR would, but I think RPS would buy in. I think Paydirt obviously would buy in. I think you would see the dudes over at Skotastic like buy in. I do.
Oh, of course. I mean, there's people at RPS. We've got Big Kev for the show. He does the RPS content.
Yeah.
M. Bellman's been on the show. He's somebody that does it at Skotastic. So, look here, there's a couple things. I mean, when if you're sweating baseball, we've all been there. Well, I don't know if we've all been there, but I've had situations where it's like the fifth inning and I'm like, oh man, but like it takes another fucking 2 hours for that game to finish. And, not because it's exciting, it just takes a long time to finish. That's the unique thing about, I think, certain event-driven sports. League of Legends doesn't take that long, and so it's exciting. One of the most exciting slates that I remember was during that 2020 phase. There was a ERL, or no, it was the EU Masters buy-in or like play-in match, and there were like 4 or 5 games. They were all best of one. They were all played at the same time.
Yep.
So you bought into this contest and it was done 30 minutes later. And that's exciting. There's some finality to that. But on top of that, you could say that soccer is similar to that, but you don't know what the hell's happening half the time it's scoring for soccer. And that's the problem. With League, you can look at the screen, the scoreboard's right there. It's a quick game. You know that your guy's scoring well, or you know that he isn't. I mean, I would say that I have the same problem sometimes with hockey, is sometimes, especially if you're trying to watch several games at once, but even if you're just watching one, you're like, oh shit, my guy scored. Oh wait, like, well, my team scored, but was my guy out there? Who's kidding? You just don't know sometimes. And that's the problematic for some of those things. But I don't know. The other thing is that from a time perspective, it is difficult for a lot of people to get up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning and follow these leagues. I will tell you that I do better in these when I watch the games and I have more nuance and understand them. That's because I kind of understand what's going on at the games, and I don't think that that's the case for everybody. But not being able to wake up at 3, 4, 5 o'clock is a hindrance to some people, but to others, hell, man, you go to bed at 11. You hope your rosters are okay. You wake up at 8 or 9 in the morning and 90% of the slate's done. Sometimes you've won that money. I think one of my first big wins in League was similar to that. I spent a lot of time locked in. I think it was Top Esports, Jackie Love's first game with them, and they were the underdog. And I put a bunch of money on the 150 3-max, and I think I finished second, got like 3,000 to 5,000. It was my biggest win at the time. It was super exciting, but all good points. I love the tool. I can't wait to use it some more. I just realized today's Monday. I had the day off because it was going to snow. So tomorrow is Tuesday. We've got a bunch of games that are on Underdog. They're posted right now. We do have the SVP. We've got lines posted for the NLC, and then there are a bunch of games for some of the smaller leagues. So look to my Twitter. I think I have a link to the tool there. If you want a Discord link, let me know. I can get you a Discord link to Paydirt. I can get you a Discord link to the esports department. And then once the Shark Cove Discord is fully up and running, we'll get that done too. James, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I want to thank you for building the tool and making it free for at least, a month. And then, that's it. Do you want to close with anything?
No, not really. This is good. I don't get to talk to you or about esports enough. So I like doing this when we have time. We tried to plan this last week and we both kind of fell out of it. But yeah, I want to try to be on a little bit more often, and hopefully at a time when I don't have a fucking cough that I have to mute myself every 36 seconds. Yeah, this is good. I'm excited for the new season. I'm excited to see how the tool works out, and I'm excited to see people use it and let me know what needs to be better about it. I'm serious. I'm not one of those people in the industry that's like going to take offense to you telling me that you want something to be changed or fixed, or you found a bug, and just come fucking find me and let me know, and I'll do my best to fix it. So thanks for having me on, and thanks for people who support me. Just, you guys rock.
All right, thanks everybody. Also, just before I leave, I just want to reiterate something that I did in the Discord. That's I wish nothing but the worst for Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears. See you guys later.